The 4G version of the Redmi Note 13 Pro has just launched globally, and it certainly packs in more than decent specs for its value. That is, if the 200 megapixel camera in this guy is anything to go by. Other than the phone itself, there's a black rubber case in the box, as well as a 6 amp charging cable and a 67 watt charging brick. The device starts with a price tag of $250 US, which is very fair, considering the Redmi Note series is one of the best selling Android ranges worldwide, and I don't expect this to be any different. You can pick one up in midnight black, lavender purple, or the color which I have, known as forest green. The design looks fantastic and it's very comfortable in the hand, thanks to it being quite lightweight at 188 grams and fairly thin at just 7.98 millimeters. The side rails are nice and squared off, but they are made from plastic. The back plate is however made from glass, and you'll be happy to hear that the device offers an IP54 dust and splash resistant rating. The screen is protected by Gorilla Glass 5, and it houses a standard sized 6.67 inch flat AMOLED display with very tiny bezels wrapping around. It has a full HD resolution panel with DCI-P3 wide color gamma and supports Dolby Vision, HDR10 and Widevine L1 content. It has a peak brightness of 1300 nits, so it should be fairly bright even outdoors. It also features 1920Hz PWM dimming for eye strain protection and packs in 120Hz refresh rate with adaptive sync. Software is running on MIUI 14 and not Xiaomi's new HyperOS skin, but that could change with a future software update. This MIUI 14 build is based on Android 13 and offers all of Google's features out of the box. The software experience is smooth, and there are features such as large folders, which you don't typically see in budget Redmi devices. The Note 13 Pro packs in a more than large enough 5000 mAh battery with very fast 67 watt wired charging, but it does pack in a bit of a budget chipset, though it's still more than capable for this price. That being a 6nm run MediaTek Helio G99 Ultra CPU, which has a max clock speed of 2.2 GHz. And yes, since this chip is not capable of 5G connectivity, the device is limited to 4G networks. The good news is that it can run 2 SIM cards simultaneously and even has an option for expandable storage thanks to micro SD card support for up to 1 TB. Onboard UFS 2.2 storage goes up to 512 gigs, and its LPDDR4X RAM modules goes up to 12 gigs with an option for an extra 8 gigs of memory extension. The chipset itself manages to get some decent scores across multiple different benchmarks. Results are not record-breaking by any means, but scores point toward more than enough performance for everyday tasks. Gaming is not one of those everyday tasks, but it still manages to get around 30 frames per second in Genshin Impact with all graphical settings set to the max. It's a very demanding game, so the performance of the G99 is certainly capable, but you'll want to drop the in-game settings if you want a higher FPS count. Call of Duty Mobile is limited to 60 FPS on this device, which is acceptable but not ideal for first-person shooters. The good news is that it sits at a stable 60 FPS while playing on the highest settings available. I had no issues with Wi-Fi connectivity, but there is no Wi-Fi 6 here. Fortunately, there is NFC and Bluetooth 5.2. There is also an IR blaster and even a headphone jack, which is a nice touch. Speakers are usually singular in devices like these, but you'll be pleased to hear that the Note 13 Pro packs in a dual speaker setup with Dolby Atmos support, so let's give them a listen.
Contact with enemy! Care package on standby.
So the Note 13 Pro has plenty of power for those looking for a smooth daily driver experience, but not necessarily for those who want the absolute best gaming performance. That said, one of the main selling points of this device are those cameras, so let's start things off with the selfie camera. As I'm sure you've already noticed, it has a small punch hole notch found at the top center of its display, and within that punch hole sits a familiar 16 megapixel selfie sensor with an aperture of f2.4. And I was quite surprised how well selfies came out during the day, even when set to portrait mode, which offers very good edge detection.
What's up guys, this is TechNick recording a 1080p 60fps selfie video on the brand new Redmi Note 13 Pro. Unfortunately, there is no bokeh video mode option or 4K video mode option when using the selfie cam, but at least 1080p selfie video recording is silky smooth at 60 frames per second.
Selfie video at night drops the frame rate down to 25 FPS for brighter results, and while selfie pics come out okay at night, portrait mode tends to struggle from time to time. I wasn't expecting 4K selfie video, so overall I'm rather pleased with selfie performance here. All that's left now are those back cameras, and that's where the main value for money aspect comes into play. The triple camera setup consists of a large 1 inch sized 200 megapixel main camera with an aperture of f1.65, and it even supports optical image stabilization, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 2 megapixel macro sensor. The macro sensor produces decent shots, but not the best I've seen. The ultra wide results in surprisingly good photos, but the main camera is where things shine, and it can shoot at native 200 megapixel resolution or bin down at 12.5 megapixels. At 2x digital zoom, the 200 megapixel mode can still be used, and most of the detail still remains intact. But things start to dip at 5x or even 10x zoom, which is the max range for the Note 13 Pro. Taking a snap of a human subject comes out very good, and once again edge detection is near perfect. But one of the biggest deal breakers is that video, even when using the main camera, is limited to just 1080p resolution with no option for 4K. But hey, at least the main camera can shoot at smooth 60 FPS. The frame rate drops at night to keep things lit up, which is the case for the main camera, but certainly not the same for the ultra-wide. Ultra-wide photos at night are also a bit lackluster, but the main camera takes phenomenal photos at night. That main sensor continues to keep things bright all the way up to 10x zoom, but I'd recommend you stick to a max of 2x zoom if you care about detail. Speaking of detail, taking a portrait shot at night is filled with noise grain and over-sharpening, but thankfully taking a normal photo of me came out looking fantastic. The Redmi Note 13 Pro does a lot of things right. The main camera is one of them, but its supporting cameras aren't the most useful. Cameras aside, it has more than decent performance for its asking price, a large battery with fast charging, a flagship level display, and a very appealing design. There's not much more you could ask for when it comes to a phone at this price point, and that's probably why Redmi sells so many Note series devices year after year. Let me know your thoughts on what should be another one of the most popular smartphones of 2024. This is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.